You guys ever have that one retro game you just really vibe with? Like, something clearly outdated by modern game standards, but it just clicks for you? For me, that would have to be Sega's Dragon Crystal. Dragon Crystal was released in the US for the Game Gear in April of 1991. It's a roguelike where after stumbling into an antique shop, you're sucked into the crystal on the game's title screen. All you can do is use what you find on each of the 30 floors to fight your way out. I have a lot of fond memories of this one. It's technically before my time, but a few months before I graduated high school, it was released onto the 3DS's eShop as a virtual console title. This was a few years before I got my PSP, so the 3DS was getting all of my gaming time. I think it was actually the only handheld I owned at the time. Wow, have things changed. Dragon Crystal got released on the 3DS's Virtual Console on March 15th, 2012. It's a really convenient pick up and play game, so when I wasn't grinding in the raid mode of Resident Evil Revelations, I was probably on this. Nearly 40 hours is pretty damn good for such a simple little title. And hey, looks like I got it really close to its release as well. Getting games when they actually came out back then was super rare for me. This was around the time I started being interested in handhelds of the past, so I had lots of Game Boy and Game Boy Color titles that got released on the 3DS. Virtual console titles on the 3DS were all presented really well, but it was Nintendo in their handheld prime, so you would expect no less. But the stuff Sega put out was just as good. They had some Genesis and arcade titles directly ported over in their 3D Classics line. And they were very generous with customization options, even if their library selection was a little more limited. For the Game Gear releases, you could change the faceplate if you played in the original resolution. You're going to be seeing that today because it looks a lot nicer. They also had this special performance option under the screen settings. I think it eliminates sprite flicker, which plagued a lot of the 8-bit systems. But most important of all, they let you remap the buttons, which I absolutely took full advantage of. This is the setup I use for this game. At first glance, you're probably thinking I'm insane. What the hell is start doing map to the B button? Well, for easy access, because you're going to want that button held down a lot of the time. See, Dragon Crystal has this crazy thing called a fast forward button. No, I did not misspeak. Dragon Crystal on the fucking Game Gear has a fast forward button. Years before this would become commonplace on emulators and a sick addiction for people playing Pokemon games, Dragon Crystal let you speed up the action by holding down the start button. Smart choice, as it's not like it was doing anything anyways. Dragon Crystal doesn't use an attack button, instead you do so by pressing into enemies with the D-pad. Button 1 on the Game Gear instead opens up your inventory screen, which also pauses the game. This frees up the start button from its typical function. So, instead of slowing the action down, they made it speed it up. The manual also says, to pause the game, do not press any button, which is absolutely true, as Dragon Crystal only moves when you do. The world revolves around you in Dragon Crystal. Dragon Crystal is technically a turn-based game. Walking to a new tile, attacking an enemy, interacting with most items, or simply pressing button 2 while on the field will cause time in Dragon Crystal to flow. This allows you to look at your surroundings and plan out your next move carefully. Will you advance onward or retreat? Perhaps you'll go for that sword you see and eliminate your foe in one fell swoop. Or maybe you'll toss one of your yet-to-be-identified items. Yes, unidentified items. Every level is a maze littered with items of unknown origin and use. You'll discover various magic rods, spellbooks, potions, and rings. I mean, sure, you could be the guinea pig and test them on yourself, but why not toss them at an enemy and make them take the brunt of it? This is the smartest bet, and other than swords and armor, I would always toss something the first time you pick it up. Once an item has been used in any way, every copy of it in the game will be identified. But it only displays their name. There's no tooltips in this game telling you what they actually do. The manual doesn't either, so you're going to have to use them yourself and take your own notes, or use a cheat sheet like this one. I think these are an absolute necessity if you want to beat this game. I mean, if the shift ring makes you blink around like a wizard, why wouldn't the ogre ring turn you into one? Items basically boil down to the good, the bad, and the nothings. Bad and nothings you should yeet at enemies, and good ones you should use on yourself. I mentioned you shouldn't throw weapons and armor, but it's because their downsides aren't really that bad. If you happen to equip something that's cursed, you'll still get their stat bonuses, you just can't unequip them easily. Rings are similar, however, the only cursed rings are those with negative effects. And there's only a few bad ones, so if you don't have a ring equipped, you're probably fine just equipping one blindly. You're more likely to get a positive effect than not. If you're in a bad spot and need to be careful, you could always equip one blindly and then use a bless book to remove the curse from any equipped item. It's also a good idea to hang on to all the potions, even the bad ones. A potion book will change all of them into healing items, which is incredibly overpowered. Other bad items can just get yeeted at enemies, provided they don't yeet you themselves. And this is if the hunger doesn't get to you first. You can hold a max of 99 food that gets eaten up slowly over time. If you have some, you'll heal up a bit each time, but without it your HP will drain instead. Every time you die, you can continue from the last floor number you made it to, losing everything but your equipped weapon and armor. It gets more expensive the deeper you go and the more you die, so eventually you'll be priced out of it. Gold can be found in levels with everything else, but you really don't get a lot of it, so you'll have to try and avoid this screen as much as possible. When I was younger, if I hit this screen, I was done right there. I very rarely ever continued. I did really like this game, but I felt it had one major issue. So, as a kid, I never bothered to beat this one because sometimes levels would just be totally unbeatable. See, as you navigate each maze, it becomes revealed from the fog, which is all these gray objects you're seeing. But the layouts are randomly generated. Sometimes you'll get locked out of parts of the map where the level exit is. This is a pretty critical flaw in my opinion, but it's still a fun game, so 6 out of 10 I guess. That's so annoying though, it's merely one object blocking my... What? Yeah. This is a thing you can do. It's even in the manual for every release. I deserve that. For 13 years, I didn't understand how this worked. I remember reading the 3DS manual and seeing this, but whenever I tried it in game, I couldn't figure it out. It's not like it does it in every spot either. Best to just hold down start and hammer 2 in a few suspicious places until you get lucky. Something tells me this is one of those we don't like rentals game design decisions. Total dog shit by today's standards, but perfectly acceptable back then. This is also before I had the patience to watch someone else's gameplay if something was tripping me up, so I guess I can cut myself a little slack. As you go deeper, you'll start to see a wide variety of enemies. Frogs, flaming trees, various one-eyed creatures, etc., each with their own unique behavior. The ninjas and these weird bedsheet ghost things like to teleport around until they line up and launch projectiles at you. Slimes are usually a complete joke, but the stronger ones love to multiply when your attacks miss. Rooms can even load up with them if you don't slay them reliably. You know, in a crowd control situation like this, it'd be really nice to have a helping hand. You've probably noticed this dragon following behind you. Well, sometimes he's an egg, but you know what I mean. I'm pretty sure he's the dragon in Dragon Crystal. I used to think he helped in some way since his appearance can change, but nah, he's just along for the ride. And to watch you die, I guess. Speaking of dying, these floating orb enemies are a new player's death sentence. Getting in a fight with these is a bad idea if you're not properly prepared. They dish out tons of damage. They're usually what I use the attack rods on. They don't engage unless you choose to fuck around and find out, so you could skip them, but sometimes floors are loaded with them. And sometimes, the game is even more evil than that. Alright, come on, let's get back in there.
What the fuck?
Imagine being a new player and seeing this shit. It literally looks like a trap, and since there are items in the game that let you teleport, the player could be easily tricked into thinking this room being a death trap is intentional design. I say that because I thought this for years. Even though I now know about the hidden exits, I still couldn't find it here. So I figured maybe I had to defeat all the enemies before it would open. So I challenge him and... I die. For the record, these rooms do have normal hidden exits with nothing special about them, you know, besides being hidden and all. I do think this is bad design, but situations like this are also exactly why I always read manuals now. Most of the time there's some stupid bullshit hidden away in them that you wouldn't know without reading. So with the knowledge I have now, I'm gonna try and beat this thing. But we're gonna cheat a bit. The 3DS Virtual Console version officially supports save states, so I'm gonna use them. I am doing this mainly because the game stacks things against you. I mentioned before enemies get stronger as you go, but eventually they just start absolutely wrecking you. And I'm not talking dealing tons of damage. I mean they wreck your character.
What the fuck?
Enemies will start doing nasty shit, like permanently draining your stats and destroying your weapons and armor. That's obviously devastating in any game, but the stronger enemies hit a point where you are required to exploit their weaknesses if you want to survive battles with them. So what are their weaknesses? Very specific swords. You'll find all kinds of swords, but some of them will have kind of suspicious names like Ninja Killer or Hardbreaker. You want to get as many of these as possible. You do not want to engage Death Orbs without Hardbreaker. You will not survive. But killing them provides a bounty of experience points. You'll want to eliminate as much as you can for the last few floors. I'm basically going to abuse save states to get an inventory and character setup, and then permanently mark it at the end of floor 25. If I run out of continues, I'll restart from this save. I think that's a good trade-off. Even with this golden setup, it's not easy. These eyes that rust your swords are your worst nightmare. They'll destroy whatever sword you're holding, no matter how powerful. It's best to challenge them with weaker or duplicate swords. Or, better idea, how about that fucking dagger they turn everything into? The dagger is your best weapon against these fucking eyes. It's what you start with, and when your sword rusts, it turns into one. So having this happen to something super powerful blows. But they can't dagger a dagger. Equipping one to tackle the eyes turns it into a game of trading blows and backing off. They end up being fairly easy EXP instead of a massive threat. All of the enemies at this point in the game are ruthless, and if you go in unprepared, you're pretty much screwed. There are better swords, but I use the Blood Blade the most. It recovers your HP with each successful strike, so it lessens the amount of damage enemies do by a ton. Sand sharks are totally obnoxious. They hit hard and steal tons of food, but the Blood Blade helps manage them. If you're in a room with them, it's best to take them all out before you grab any of the food in the room. Otherwise you might end up with nothing. The last two floors contain the hardest enemy in the game, the dragon. There is a blade dragons are weak to, but even with it, these guys are a problem. The game expects you to be near maximum level to deal with them, and they attack relentlessly for a lot of damage and from a distance. Avoiding them might be for the best. Even with this save state, I'm still getting my ass handed to me. I say fuck killing everything, let's see if we can just cheese this straight to the end. In my inventory, I have 2 items that make clearing floors a total breeze. Map books remove all of the fog on a floor so you can see where everything is, and travel rods instantly warp you to the next one. So you'd probably expect there to be a big boss at the end of Dragon Crystal, something to cap the game off. Well, there isn't. The final level is exclusively packed with dragons, often in groups, and will absolutely decimate you. Other than that, it's just like every other level, except you're not looking for an exit this time. You're looking for this thing. I've seen sources call this the crystal ball, and it does look similar to the stand for the one on the continue screen. If you see this thing, your best plan is to beeline right for it. So guess where it spawned? You hold the stand high as you're warped back to reality. You're finally free to return to your own life. You get a neat little credits montage and a special image that I am not spoiling because it looks sick, especially for Game Gear. I gotta be honest, this is one of the most satisfying endings I've seen in a retro game. I'm really glad I finally got to beat this, but we're not done yet. Dragon Crystal also got a conversion to the Master System in a few countries. It's the same game under the hood, but all of the graphics and music have been overhauled. New names for nearly everything and totally new environments to explore. Even enemies have been changed to completely new entities with the same behavior. Everything looks a bit more fantastical and daring, better matching the mechanics of the endgame. It also got a wider view in levels thanks to the Master System's larger aspect ratio. Everything here is an upgrade, essentially, but I'm so fond of the elements of the original, I think it loses some of its charm. I also think some elements from both match well with the opposite version. Like, the music from the Game Gear release is more serious than the somewhat cheery stuff in the Master System one, but it matches that version's more threatening enemy designs. But, regardless of all that, I'd be lying if I said the Master System version isn't a overall superior experience. The fast forward button is now a toggle, and it seems like the game has been tweaked to make things a little bit easier. I got all the way to floor 22 without any save states, and in the latter half I got bored and didn't play seriously. If you do happen to beat this version, it's got a completely different ending with a brand new image. So, Dragon Crystal is a bit of a Castlevania 64 Legacy of Darkness situation. If you like one, you'll like the other, and you should play both of them. It's really fun treating the other as a second quest and seeing all the changes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Dragon Crystal. I think this is one of the best games I've played from this era of handhelds. Totally brutal even once you know what you're doing, but even when I was still in the dark, I just kept coming back to it. I think that alone speaks volumes of why the roguelike genre has always been so popular. If you get a few factors just right, it's easy to nail that one more run desire roguelikes are known for. If I had a Game Gear growing up, I would have been all over this. I guess I was lucky enough to finish out high school with it. Overall, I'd give this game a 7.5 out of 10. I'd recommend it to anybody interested in the Game Gear's library. The selection on 3DS may have been a little light, but honestly, this is one of the only games I needed. Dragon Crystal does have a sort of sequel on the Sega Genesis called Fatal Labyrinth, but yeah, I mean, it's very similar, but it doesn't have the speed up function, and its menu is kind of annoying to navigate. I'm not really feeling this one. But hey, if you've ever beaten Dragon Crystal on real hardware, please let me know. I think it's super impressive when people conquer punishing retro games like this. I mean, I beat Mastema, and I'm never gonna shut the fuck up about it.